Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Money, Sex, and God. This has been so much fun. I'm Genevieve, and I am here with Arielle Brown, an intimacy coach and all-around rock star, a light in this world. And we're going to start by dropping into our bodies. Arielle is going to gift us with the pleasure of her voice. So when you're ready, darling.
Thank you for having me. And I'll share an original song, which to me, it kind of like speaks to everything about why I do the work that I do in the world. So it's kind of perfect.
So good.
I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. Gather round now, brothers and sisters. There's a weight that we've been carrying. Our souls are heavy with the pain of the world, and I see hopelessness is creeping in. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's hope for us yet. There's an ember hidden deep in the coals. So we'll stalk this amber till our heart sets on fire, and we'll alchemize this pain into gold. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. Listen to your heart, it'll tell you that your suffering is rooted in the fear that you're unworthy of the love that you seek, and you cannot trust the wisdom in your tears. Well, the earth is speaking, and she's beckoning you to lean into the truth within your bones. It's a sweet surrender, it's a welcome reminder. It's the drumbeat calling you to come home, home, home. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. So gather around now, brothers and sisters. This invitation's here for you to see that isolation is the plague of our times, and the medicine is in community. So share your wisdom, your most vulnerable truths, and you will shine your light for all to see. As above, so below, as within, so without. This world's great healing starts with you and me. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down. I'm gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground. I'm gonna lay it all down. Gonna lay it all down. Gonna lay it all down, down, down to the ground.
I love you so much. We have comments. Let's see. Oh, I feel so good. Thank you. That was like so good.
Thank you for letting me bring music and intimacy together.
Oh, so good. Singing. Chrissy was singing and dancing with us. Yes, she's on next. Emily says, lay it down, baby. Yes, thank you.
Many good humans.
Such good humans. Thank you, thank you, thank you, darling. That was
such a pleasure.
So why don't we start by telling people who you are?
It's a good question. I am a human. I am a woman who about 6 or 7 years ago really realized that the way that I had learned to love, the way that I had learned to engage in romantic relationship and intimacy involved a lot of suffering and a lot of giving myself away in the pursuit of validation and approval that existed outside of me. And so much so that I just decided that I needed to unlearn the way that I had been taught and find a new way of creating relationship and creating connection that was built on authenticity and truth and a mutual desire for freedom and happiness and mutual understanding and growth. And I have been on that path for myself for the past, I guess, 6, 7, 8 years at this point, and have been both doing my own personal explorations and different trainings and supporting other humans who want the same in their own unique expression.
So good. Thank you for being that. Thank you for being that. I mean, I know you in real life and, well, enough via the internets and things, and you are that. Like, you live that, that mission, and that's someone that is trustworthy, right? When they're showing up daily in their mission, and that's you. Yeah, and I know one of the things that you really stand for, and I mean, it's just what you just were talking about has me reminded of the ability to really consciously create what our heart desires and what we desire. You mentioned like the level of freedom in relationship, which has been a new paradigm that I've been stepping into the past few years as well. And what does that look like? What does that mean to you?
It means that in a culture, in this context, an American culture, where we're trained to hide our desires and our boundaries and what we want and what we need. Like, that's what we're kind of told. Like, don't be super honest about what you want and what you need earlier on, because you might scare the person away. And what winds up happening is we build relationships on root systems that are false or built on performance. So what it looks like for me is being very transparent right off the bat with what my desires are, what my boundaries are, what I'm available for, and prioritizing connection to self over trying to fit into who I believe I need to become to make this person want me or.
Those of you watching, just out yourself and comment if you do that. Because I know we do, like, this is a societal thing, and I did this for years, and it's conditioning, right? It's like we can't blame ourselves for it, but there's such a freedom in recognizing that we can just be and lay it all out on the line and show up.
Courage. It takes courage. It's not
you have to be okay with them saying no, and with being alone in your being.
Yes. and trusting that in the letting go of the grasping, and instead the turning inward and becoming so centered in truth of self that we actually magnetize the most resonant connections to us.
Yes. That's, drop the mic. Because that's it. And I see this a lot, and my clients will tell me, you know, I just keep finding the wrong people. I keep finding the wrong people. You know, I think we're committed, and then boom. And I have my own musings on it, but I have a feeling there's a through line here. So what would you say to them?
I would say, look at what your end destination is. Look at what you've set your sights on. Like when I'm talking to clients I'm working with who identify as women, I call it princess goggles, like wearing our princess goggles. Like the part of us that's been so conditioned to see the end destination as the Prince Charming, or the end destination as the marriage and the home. Because what winds up happening, and again, we're conditioned to do this is that we make our end goal another human being, which means we're playing a finite game that is inevitably set up to fall apart, because the person who you fall in love with is not going to be the person that stays exactly as they are for the rest of their life. Yeah. And what I would invite, and this is something that a teacher of mine, Nicole Daydone, presented, the distinction between a horizontal relationship and a vertical relationship, where a horizontal is one where the end goal is the other person, and to win means you get the other person. Whereas a vertical relationship is saying, I am opting into the most resonant form of connection with you in the name of freedom and happiness and truth for both of us. And allowing the relationship to evolve into different forms, so that it might not always be true that if you were in a committed primary monogamous relationship, it might not be true that that's always the form, and allowing our relationships to evolve and grow as we do. I
was married for, I don't think a lot of my clients or people that know me and follow me know this part of my story, that because I talk more about sex than I do relationships. So this is a little story here, is that one thing that I am really, I don't know if the word's proud, but my heart feels really full, is that all of my exes, like every single one of them, and I talk pretty regularly. And I love all of them so dearly. And my co-parent I was married to, we were together for 9 years. And she's like, we call each other every day. And I love her like with every ounce of my being. And I'm so grateful to everything. And we didn't have that. Like that energy was not possible when the two of us were living in the same space, married. You know, it just wasn't there. And it was scary to take this leap and go, okay, we're going to separate this and see what happens. And, but it's in the name, like you said, in the name of freedom, then look at what's possible, you know?
And then the name of vulnerability and the willingness to stay connected in the uncomfortable, messy spots where we don't necessarily have it all together. Our shadow and gritty aspects are coming out. And like the willingness to stay connected with those people who witnessed us and probably our not finest moments.
Yeah. And so in that, bridging that to this, I just have been wanting to hear you talk about this since I heard that this is a thing that you talk about. Jealousy, right? Our ugly moments of jealousy. Tell me about that. And because it's a place that I haven't really explored much, because I'm not really very jealous, but a lot of my clients are. And this is really, you're feeding me here as well. So thank you.
Jealousy is such an interesting spot that I've gotten to explore just because I'm currently practicing non-monogamy, I guess would be the easiest way to call it. And jealousy is one of those emotions that I feel is really stigmatized in our culture. Like we don't want to acknowledge that we're jealous because I feel like it's associated with like it's not attractive. feeling. It's ugly. It's unevolved. And what winds up, it's also a really deep and powerful source of turn on and connection and energy and power. But we don't often see it as that. We just see it as this thing that we wish we didn't feel. And what ends up happening is, like, let's say we're in a romantic partnership, and like, let's say I'm in a romantic partnership with a man, and it's like he's allowed to be connecting with other women, but I'm feeling jealousy because maybe there's a woman who embodies more of a quality that, like, I feel like I haven't so much cultivated in myself. So I start to go into comparison. I start to go into feeling like weak and insecure, and I don't want to let him feel that. So what winds up happening is I either cut off the allowing of my sharing that, like, that passion for him, because really what jealousy is like a passion and desire. And it's like, because I don't have approval for the emotion, it's like I either cut off and kind of like shut down, or the opposite, which is lash out and be cruel, or kind of talk around the actual issue. And what my experience has been is whenever I actually do bring up jealousy to partners, it's actually like they love it. And but there's the difference is because I'm willing to express the jealousy without trying to make them wrong.
Right.
And this is where, like, and you and I were having this conversation a little bit around how do we as women connect our anger with our hearts. And to me, and like anger or jealousy, it's how do we transmit an intense feeling to a human being, maybe in this case it's a man, and actually realize that, like, oh, like, it's actually medicine for his soul. Like, it is actually deep nourishment. And like, no, trusting that the man can actually hold that. But there's so much power, like, and connection and freedom available in our ability to speak that truth.
Yeah. I haven't heard. This is, you just schooled me, taught me this really beautiful shift of paradigm that I've never played in. So like, really grateful. Really grateful for that experience of, like, yeah, jealousy is passion, and just hearing you talk about it. So how does a woman then bring her heart into her rage?
The first piece is really having approval for the fact that it exists. I think a lot of the reason, like, it's like the analogy that I would use is, are you using a clean sword, or are you using like a jagged hook dagger to stab someone with? And I believe that healthy expression of, like, intense emotions is powerful, and my desire is to cultivate my ability to use a clean sword when I penetrate with intense emotions, as opposed to kind of like hooking a person and kind of like holding them captive with resentment or just kind of like punishment that lingers, or passive aggressiveness. And often I find, and I think this is something that women tend to struggle with more than men, because we don't have approval for our intense emotions. We don't have approval for our anger. And when we don't have approval for the fact that something exists, the transmission doesn't come out clear. Like, it's the same thing of, like, let's say I have a desire for something, but I'm so in lack of approval or fear that I won't be received in my desire that I don't ask for it cleanly, or I try and manipulate for it. So to me, a big part of this is doing our own personal work around looking at where we carry guilt and shame around things that exist within us, so that we can clearly transmit them in our relationships.
I'm speechless, because it's just like the things that you're saying. I mean, people are saying it like spot on. This is outstanding. Like, I just want you to really receive, like, what a gift you have in this, because this is so needed in the world, these conversations, and what you're bringing to it. Holy shit, girl.
Thank you. And the thing is, it comes from a place of feeling so trapped for like such a long period of time and feeling so in doubt of my own emotional experience and spending most of my 20s in relationships with men that were various forms of emotionally abusive, where like my feelings weren't validated and I was flat out told how I feel is wrong and I didn't feel safe and I felt like men knew and I didn't. And there was just like, and it was this thing around like we can be so clear and so powerful at how we show up in the world, but then we get into romantic relationship, and if there are places where we're stuck, it's like all of that clarity can crumble. And I just had this experience in my 20s over and over again where I'm such a passionate, driven woman, but I would get into these relationships where I had such a lack of self-worth and a lack of connection to my intuition and my heart that I would just abandon myself, and it like broke my heart over and over again. So the passion that you feel is just like, this is such important work for all of humanity, and this is especially such important work for women, as we are learning how to show up and be sovereign in our ability to take care of ourselves and not perpetuate the old paradigm of we need a man to take care of us. That doesn't mean that we don't want men in our lives who want to support us and nourish us, but not coming from a place of, I can't do this on my own.
Yeah. It feels funny, but I'm just receiving so much transmission right now of like just your brilliance. And let's go to the comments, because
right.
Yes, all the yes. People are saying a lot of shame comes from jealousy due to people saying it is from insecurity. I don't quite understand what you said. A lot of shame comes from jealousy. I don't know. Maybe Christina, if you could elaborate on that for us, that would be amazing. And yeah, I mean, the shame blame game, right, is something that.
Well, one piece that comes up for me around that is like I had an experience with a male friend of mine like a month ago where we were just sitting in our local like organic grocery store, and we're both very energetic human beings. So we just sat next to each other and decided to like open up our energetic fields with each other and just play with each other energetically, like no touching, just like playing with each other. And I really opened my system up to him. Like I was really impacted by his energy. And then the container closed like quickly. And it's like, okay, I'm closing out my field, and like, okay, I'm going to wrap up and I'm going to go. And after he walked away, even though there was like a closing, it was like, I realized, wow, for the depth that I went there, like it didn't feel good to have that huge opening and then just have it closed and him walk away. Like I was like, wow, like this, I actually am realizing, okay, this is what I need in order to be available for this depth of connection. And I wound up calling him like 5 minutes after and just being like, hey, do you have a moment to talk? And wanted to share with him, like, I just want to be honest, like, I don't want to make you wrong here. And what I do want to share is that like we went super deep, and the way it was closed didn't feel good for me. I have a desire for deeper intimacy with you where I can feel more held in the container. And I want to share that with you because I want to be honest. And the thing that he shared, which I think a lot of men and just humans can struggle with, he's like, well, the truth is that I'm feeling like I did something wrong and I'm kind of feeling shame right now. And to me, this is the work of the person who's receiving the jealousy. Because when a person is doing their work to clearly share, hey, I'm feeling jealous right now, the person who's receiving can make one of mainly two choices, which is to realize that it's not actually about me, and that I don't need to take this personally, and it's a gift that this person is sharing this with me because they want intimacy with me. Right. Or we can go into, I've done something wrong, I'm going to tuck my tail between my legs and go into feeling like the victim, or just like, oh, just like, I can't win from this place. And that creates such a place of shutdown for partners, because if a person goes into shame, and especially like for, like working with one of my male clients, like when he goes into shame, it becomes this vortex that can be so challenging to lift out of.
Mm-hmm. 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 You have such good medicine.
Thanks, babe. I do you.
Thank you, honey. It's just so powerful. It's so powerful. I mean, relationships it's spiritual mastery, right? It's like we've done all our work, right? And now let's take it out to the ball game. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it was funny. I was telling you about that that panel discussion that I was on last night, where we were talking about the intersection between intimacy and psychedelics and the spaces that we can access. And there was a guide who came up for the question and answer portion, and he was just talking about how like we go into psychedelics to do our work, or that can be like we're going in to explore and excavate consciousness. And to me, I feel like relationship, the practice of relating, is similar to that. It is an opportunity to deeply explore our reaction mechanisms and the places where we perpetuate outdated ways of being that limit us and find freedom in them.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's why I'm always in. Like I'm in with you in this relationship. I'm in with all the people on Money, Sex, and God. And, you know, I've never been one to turn away love.
Well, and what I feel
consciously, right?
Exactly. And what I hear you speaking to, which feels like another important conversation, I did a video about this a couple of days ago, was like, you're all in.
Right.
Like you're all into the connection. And I feel like for people who are especially like maybe avoidant or have like limited concepts around love, there can be this fear that if I'm all in, it means that I have to be committed to you and nobody else.
Right.
Or that, you know, and this is
I'll lose myself in you. I'll get consumed. That's one that I get a lot because I am actually avoidant attachment. But I've just done a ton of, I mean, I can see her now, the little girl that's like, run away. And I'm like, no, bring it back. But yeah, there's my thing is like consumption. Like I'm going to be consumed by this other person and lose myself. Right.
Exactly.
So.
Or that piece. And I'm going to be, if I'm fully here for you, then I won't be able to fully be there for other people. And this fear that it's an if this, then not that.
Right.
And being able to expand our concept into it's not an either or, it can be a yes and.
Yeah. So amazing. So good. So you, I mean, I'm like, I just want to hear everything you have to say all the time.
Excellent. I love to talk.
So it's like the work that you've done around this, it's so clear that it's like grounded and it's like, no, this is truth, right? You're not just spinning with this, like with these like pieces, these conceptual pieces, you're like in it, like it's in you. And I can see, just as someone who does the same thing with her sex mechanisms, I can see it in you. And I'm like, yes. So just naturally want to just hear all the things and like everyone watching, I'm sure will just sign up for all the things that you have, because it's an energy of like embodied. It's embodied.
Well, what if we talk, like, I feel like often the question is like, where do I start?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so all this sounds really good. Like, how the hell do I get into this game? Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is where the conversation of desire comes up. Like it's so interesting to me because I like, for example, I have my virtual course for women called Appetite coming up. And it's a course all about connecting to our core desires. And whenever I get on a consultation call with a potential client or someone for this course, and I ask them, like, what do you want? Like, so often the true answer is, I don't actually know.
Right.
And it's such a surprisingly common answer, because we have been spending so much of our lives being told what we should want in order to avoid losing love, in order to be socially acceptable, in order to avoid taboo, in order to fit in, that it's actually become what seems very unsafe to actually know who we are and what we want, because it could destabilize the elaborate, performance of our life that we have created to feel safe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I see the same. It was actually, this reminds me of, this was 7 years ago, before I started jumping into my work with sexuality and desire and pleasure. And I was at this workshop, and there was this exercise where a person stands in front of you and he just says over and over again, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And I was just frozen. Like I had nothing in me. And I was so ashamed, like, my God, how do I not know what I want? Like who, right? And now coming to realize, like, this is a conditioned response. It's not anyone's fault if they don't know what they want, right? And there are people like you in the world that have the tools, right? To bring it.
Yeah, and I love that game. I run it in some of the groups that I facilitate. And what I love about that game is because, there's one person who's like asking, what do you desire? What do you want? And then there's the other person who's sharing the desire. And like people can often think, well, like, oh, like the game is all about the person who's speaking the desire and the other person's just like there. But what I love about the position of being the desire asker is that we are learning how to hold space for a person's growing into what they truly want.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, again, when I talk about doing our work so that we can show up cleanly in relationship. Like I just got off a consult with a call with a man who's like feeling shut down in his marriage and not being received by his wife, and like he has these desires that he's afraid to bring to the table. And so often, like when a woman is afraid of being able to hold her man's desires, it's because we have our own shame and our own fear and our own seeming inability to hold space and approval for our own desires.
Mm-hmm.
And like we can offer such healing and like such beautiful like growth to people by having approval for what it is that they want, and learning how to have approval for what they want without feeling like there's anything expected of them.
Nothing to add, nothing to fix, nothing to judge around it.
Yeah. It's so liberating.
So liberating. So, and it doesn't change what they want, doesn't change you.
Mm-mm.
Like there gets to be this beautiful, I see it a lot in sex. It's like, yeah, have your desire. Like people are so afraid of saying, I want to spank you, because they know their wife's not going to like it. And it's like, just say it so that she can feel your desire. That's energy.
Yeah.
And then sit with what's there. Like, let's accept it. Let's be there. Let's just be in that space of like tension that's created, because all of that is just moving. It's moving parts. And
yep.
Right?
And that's calling a woman into her power.
Totally.
Like that's calling a woman into realizing that she can be the container holder, and that the man doesn't always need to be the person who's holding it strong. And mm-hmm. so many men are so desiring mm-hmm. this ability to be surrendered and vulnerable in the expression of their desire in relationships. But if we as women are just playing out the societal conditioning of like, the man's a strong one, right. and I'm like the watery one. We deprive ourselves of like, as like being able to embrace like the dominant aspects of us and the person that can hold and be in command, which is such a luscious place
for
women to be able to hold.
Yeah, that's so perfect. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's true. So Appetite is coming up.
Yep.
And when does it start?
So Appetite is a 10-week virtual course, group coaching experience, alchemical container. It begins February 13th, and it's open to 7 women. So I would describe it as for women who are ready to shift from one way of being to another, from one paradigm of how we show up in our life and our relationships and how we create into another. It's a container that is big enough for you to show up in your fullness and be supported by a group of women as you expand and allow to fall away the fears, the self-doubt, the beliefs that have us feel like we're not worthy of having these things that so want to emerge from within us. And if anyone here is interested who identifies as a woman, I'm happy to have a conversation. There is enrollment interviews, and I would love to talk, especially the women coming through your channel, Genevieve. I love the back and forth of the West Coast and the East Coast.
It's so good. And I know I'm already thinking of people on my page that I'm sure are going to just freaking eat you up the way that I do. Because it's just, I mean, I use that terminology because appetite, yum, yum. And yeah, and there's a link for that in the description too. So of this video, so people can just link in and follow that way. And yeah, and thank you. My God, I feel so fed with just like truth right now in my body. Like it feels like really good.
Well, first of all, thank you. And I will receive that. I've felt very received lately, and I'm super grateful. And it's just such a gift to be meeting and connecting with more and more women in my life who not only can hold that, but are turned on and leaned in by it. And that's the type of women I desire to be surrounded by.
That's me, darling. I love you so much. Thank you for being on, love.
Total pleasure. I look forward to tuning into the other episodes.
Yes. Bye, honey.
Bye, love.